Alright, so we're going to start our clothing file. This is clothing startup file 001, and if I hit play and I'm looking through my perspective view, this is what we currently have. Okay, now I didn't model him, I didn't animate him. All I did was I grabbed this guy from the visor. And he's under mocap examples, and you'll see that there's a bunch of different things inside here. I went and looked for a clip that was easy to animate, so I just middle drag one guy in here, and here's this specific one. There he is. Let me switch my other camera because this is my animated one. So if you watch this running guy, you can see he just starts running. Okay, so this is how he starts off in his scene, is that he's not in this T pose like this. Okay, it's hard to get a character and add clothing to them when they're in this kind of position. All right, so it's easiest to take something like this pose and then add the clothing to it, and then have him just slowly get into position and then start taking off. You'll also notice that we're starting in the negative 100 to 0 range, and that's kind of like him getting in position, and then he starts walking, okay, after that 0 frame. So so that's what I did with this guy, is that I just set up on mine, I grabbed him, and I believe I have joints hidden. There we go. So you'll see inside this thing there's a bunch of joints, and I just went into all these joints, this one all the way to that one, and I just went to negative 100, and I just zeroed out all the rotations and then set a key. Okay, now in this case you see that he's rotated a completely different direction, so that if I start doing this, he's actually going to start flipping a little bit like that. Okay, so what I also did was try to figure out the easiest transition for that. So if I go here and grab the hips, or this pelvis right here, and see that this is actually at 90, 90, and negative 90, rotated a bit. So I went to 90, negative 90, and 90, and then I set a key on that. You'll see that now I don't have that issue with him freaking out. Okay, so that's how we start this, is just getting this character into position. Okay, I'm showing this part just so you can see, why he's like that and get the optimal position. With him in this pose, what I did was I duplicated him then, and I unlocked all of these, and then I went through, and I'm just going to isolate this. I just grabbed stuff that would be part of his shirt. Okay, so how do you create a shirt? You start deleting stuff. Same thing with the pants. I'll get to the pants in a minute. I'll get to this. There we go. Okay, so this is a long sleeve shirt right now. Right now we have long johns, so let's get rid of that. Okay, now what we're gathering from this is that we're getting the overall shape. Okay, the shape's already pretty much there. Okay, let's chop this one off. There we go. Okay, and then I can go in with the edges here, and under my edit mesh I can go to the edge area and say detach component, and then I'll go to mesh and say separate. And so now I have a shirt and I have pants. Okay, and now from here it's just a matter of tweaking it to get the shape that I want. Okay, so if I want a V-neck, I'll just modify these until I get a V-neck shape. All right, I also go through and kind of clean it up so I don't have any triangles. So I would delete that there or rework it so that I don't have a triangle. Now I have a 5-sided, so I want to fix that, but I try to eliminate that as much as I can. In some cases, if we look at the outfit I have on my guy, you'll see he actually has less points than the other one. Okay, because I really minimized how many points I had on here just so I can keep it nice and smooth. Okay, so there's the shirt, and you'll see that it looks like it's kind of poking through. That's just display. It's not actually poking through any of that. Okay, and I shaped it, tweaked it, modified it, so it looks like a shirt. Then did the same thing with the pants. Alright, so now the pants are nice and neat. Okay. Whatever you want the pants to look like, whatever you want the shirt to look like, that's what I modeled them to look like. Okay. And I try to keep it as close to his body as possible. If I start getting this, you know, like big gaps, when it starts to settle on him, it's going to look really baggy. Okay, so I try to get that as close as possible to what I want the pants to look like, what I want the shirt to look like. Okay. So once I have that, then I can just continue on from this point. I can delete all this stuff from that guy. And I'm just going to go do a little cleanup just to make sure everything is back to where it was before. Area light, file surfaces. Yep, everything's good. Okay. Alright, so we're going to open this file, and this is where we're going to start off with this. So you don't have to model the clothes. I wanted to just kind of skip that step, but show you how I did it so that if you ever have a project where you need to create clothing, you can. Okay, and then you'll see there's a couple wrinkles on here. There, you know, those will get ironed out, as we do this. All right, so we want to break this into pieces. The first piece should be the pants. Okay, the pants are typically the heavier object, and they don't typically interact with the shirt. Where the shirt does interact, it kind of like lays on top of the pants, where the pants are typically underneath. Even if the shirt was tucked in, we would still have some interaction with that. Okay, this shirt is not tucked in, so we can just leave it the way it is. So I'm going to start off with the pants, and I'm just going to save this as 002. And the first thing I need to do is just take this and make that an end mesh. So I go under end mesh and I say create nCloth. Okay, so now as I hit play, you'll see that nothing is going to happen to my nCloth until frame 0, and then they just start falling. Okay, so right now if I go into my attribute editor and I go to this nucleus that was created, you'll see that somewhere on here under time attributes it has a start frame. And the start frame is set to 1, so it's not actually calculating anything until frame 1. Well, I want to start it at frame -100, so it starts calculating here. I can let the pants settle and then go into that. All right, so now I hit play, and you'll see that he falls straight down. Right, so that's fine. So then I'm going to take the character's body. I'm going to go under end mesh, and I'm going to make it a passive collider. Okay, and then I'll make sure the pants clicked. I'll hit play. And we'll just see what happens. Okay, it's going to go a little bit slower because now we're actually calculating those collisions, and we'll just see what the result is. All right, we can actually just hide the shirt as well. Let me take this. I'll hide the shirt. So we're watching this and we're trying to see how it's moving. Typically you might get some freaky stuff happening. You can see here that his pants, that, you know, it's kind of going for more of a denim look. Uh-oh. That's embarrassing. It's going for more of a denim look, are really baggy and like soft, and his pants are actually falling down. Okay, and if we keep letting him walk, you'll see that his pants will actually probably fall off at some point. It's humorous. Alright, so what we need to do is keep these pants attached to him. So there are several ways we can do this. The first way we're going to try is just by going to vertices and grabbing all the vertices up top. Okay, I can also go to edge. The edge will let me do this too. If I just double click this edge and it goes all the way around, then I can go to end constraint and just make a transform constraint. Okay, This transform constraint is basically like a lock. It locks all these points to this locator right at the center. Okay, so I'm going to take this locator and let me show my joints again. They already are shown. I probably have them on a layer. There we go. And I'm just going to take this locator, I'm going to shift click this joint and hit P to parent it. Okay, so now that constraint is going to move with the hips. So now when I hit play, we'll see again that whole process of the pants kind of, falling into position. Hopefully they don't fall into position, but getting into position. And we'll see the pants are still going to be a little bit baggy. We'll need to adjust some of the properties for that. Okay, but at least now his pants aren't falling down. Okay, and that was our goal, is to make sure that the pants don't fall down. You can see they are doing some weird stuff. They're actually like riding up his leg. Okay, so we'll have to adjust that as well. Now every time I hit play, I'm playing through and it's getting to about frame 60, and you know what, I'd really like to see that in real time. So from here on out, I'm going to do a little play blast every time I do that. Okay, I'm going to set my end frame though to frame 60 because that gives me a good range to see the pants settling and then into that. Alright, so let's go into the pants, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the nucleus and I'm going to go into the scale attributes. Okay, if we look at creating a polycube, okay, I created one, I hit frame to frame it. You can see there's my polycube, but I have to zoom way far out because of my scene scale. Okay, so this scene scale is full size, but the nucleus solver is not reading it as full size. So what I can do is say my space, I'm going to rescale my space solver here. So we'll try at 0.1 first. I'm going to pull this up just so you can see it. Here's the nucleus stuff. The space scale of your Maya scene may need to be adjusted. With the space scale set to 1 default, gravity treats 100 centimeters like 100 meters. To improve the behavior of your large-sized nCloth objects, reduce the space scale value. Okay, so that's where I'm getting that value from, is I'm just reducing that and seeing. Now this might be 0.1, it might be 0.05, it might be 0.01. We'll just see how it goes. Okay, so I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to Play Blast option box. I'm going to go to, you can go to QuickTime if you want, and just set this to H263 or Sorensen 3 if that's an option. Yes, it is. Okay, or H264, there it is. H264 would be the best one. And then scale 100 and then Play Blast. Okay, so now we'll be able to see in our viewport what it's looking like, and then we'll be able to also see it in real time of what it's looking like. Okay, the fact that his foot's going through the ground here, that doesn't matter because we'll be rendering after frame 1 when his foot is above the ground. Okay, it looks like we're still riding up the legs. So let's see. VLC just crashed. No, don't report it. So now we can see this in real time to see how the pants are moving. And except for the bounciness, it seems like they're moving okay. Alright, so let's see if we can adjust that. So I'm going to grab the pants. Under my nCloth, I can go here and play with some of these settings. Okay. One of the things I want to look at is the collision thickness. Oops, I'm in the wrong camera. Let me go back to my perspective. Nope. I do want to be in perspective one. There we go. Just taking forever to zoom in. On each nCloth object, we have a collision thickness. So I'm going to go to my solver display and choose collision thickness and see how thick the pants are reading. Okay. Now you'll see that this yellow, it basically goes and touches the skin, which is good. But if I click the skin and I display that collision thickness, you'll see that now these two are intersecting. Okay. So basically, the collision items are intersecting each other, so I need to lower that. So I'm going to lower this one to about there. I'll grab the pants. I'll lower that thickness to about there. Okay, so that should give me a good range where they're not intersecting each other too bad. Just turn that off. Take this one. Turn that off. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to grab the pants again, and we'll see what we have here. One of the things I know is going to need to be turned up is on my dynamic properties. We need to turn the damping up, okay, and the drag. So I'm going to put the drag at 0.15. I'll put the damping up to 0.15 also. Okay. Again, we can look at this and see nCloth drag. It's spelled right. Okay, mouse behavior, drag. Specified amount of drag applied to the cloth. Drag is a component of the aerodynamic force parallel to the relative wind, which causes resistance. Okay. Damping specifies the amount of the nCloth. Damping progressively diminishes the movement and oscillation. So the goal in adjusting both of those is that it should slow down the movement of the cloth. So it seems heavier and doesn't seem so like silky, like if these are silk pajamas. So I'm going to deselect it this time. I'm going to right click and play blast. I zoom back a little bit too so I can see a better view. And then we'll see what happens after this. Alright, so here's our movie. You'll see that, you know, it doesn't really... I have movie 8 here, which is nice to be able to play, you know, back and forth. And here's movie 10, which is the latest one. Okay, so we're still getting it. Let's keep adjusting and see where we go. Okay, I'm going to take my nucleus here and adjust the space scale even further, 0.01. I'm going to go to my nCloth shape. I'll increase the mass. So let's take the mass to about 20. Okay, try this again. And again, I'm just trying to emulate, you know, a heavier material. You can see just putting the mass at 20 actually makes the pants kind of droopier a bit, so I'll probably have to turn some of my other properties up so that they're not droopy. But we'll see what we get with this behavior. Still looks like they're a little bit baggy. The good news is we're not riding up. Okay, so that's a bonus. We just have to take some of this sagginess out of our pants. So now they do look like, you know, pajama pants or some sort of other type of pant. Alright, so let's go back here. We rewind, attribute editor. Most likely the mass was one of the contributing factors to how much it was pulling down, so I could lower that. But I think I want to go up to dynamic properties and just take the stretch resistance and turn it up to 60. And my compression resistance, and I'll turn that up to 20. Okay, so stretch is how much it's actually stretching from the original vertices, and compression is how much it can like fold into one area. So I'm going to try to reduce those and see what we get. Okay, so it does settle around the feet, which is fine. It can come down a little bit. I just want to make sure I don't get any craziness happening with it. And my next step, if this doesn't, you know, do what I want, is to go through and adjust the mass, just lower the mass a bit. Yeah, I think that's working good. We'll see once we actually see a preview of this. Okay, ignore the front part. I just want to see when he's walking. Yeah, that looks good. It looks like there's a good amount of movement in here. It's not too much. I could obviously turn the stiffness up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, so there's other properties again I could adjust. I could take the mass down a little bit or up a little bit. You can try it both ways and see what happens. If we turn it up, we'll most likely get a little bit more sagging. If I turn it down, we'll get a little bit tighter. I could also pull the dragging up and my damping up. And let's see what that looks like. Just taking those two properties up. We'll see the kind of motion that we get. Yeah, I think that's working right there. That's like those settings are nice. Okay. So if I'm happy with those settings, something clashed. What I want to do is I want to commit those settings to a cache. Okay. So I'm going to rewind this, reset this to the full time. I'm going to go to my nCache and create a new nCache. Okay. I'm going to call this one pants. I'm going to make this one file per frame, time slider, evaluate every one frame, and save every one evaluation. The previous settings I had in here were 0.33, and then saving every 3 evaluations. And this was for something else where if I needed a higher resolution solve, in this case we don't. We can just do 1 and 1. So I'm going to hit create, and it'll go through and it's going to write out all this data for what those pants are going to look like and basically lock it in. Okay. And if I need to afterwards, I can disable that cache or delete the cache or change the cache or any of that. So I'm not always locked in, but it gives me, you know, a baked in set so that if I needed to, I can just keep it and move on or come back and change it. All right. So I'm just going to let it go and then we'll continue after it's done. All right. So he's done calculating. So now because this is cached, I should be able to scrub in the timeline and see him moving across. Okay, and even if I hit play, you'll see that we get not a realistic portrayal. This isn't real time, but it is, you know, much quicker than it was before. Okay, so we have to look for things like if you look at the hips, you know, they are flickering a little bit. You can see some definite flickers right there. Maybe we didn't catch those before. So we can come back and adjust some of that as well. That could be some collision stuff. It could be just some of our solver stuff. So I'm going to go through and nCache delete the cache. And I'm going to change some stuff on my nucleus. I'm going to take my substeps on the solver and the nucleus and just double this. So 6 and 8. Actually, let's go higher. Let's go 12 and 16. Okay. And what this should do is just do a better job solving all of those steps. All right. So then I'm going to go to my nCache, create a new nCache, keep it called pans. It's going to, come on, there we go. It's going to say, do you want to rename, auto rename, or replace? I want to replace. So I hit that, and then I'm just going to let it go through, and then we'll check that out after it's done. All right, so here he is again. So let's rewind this a bit. Hit play and see if we made any improvements. You know, it looks like it's still flickering. I really don't want that to flicker. You know, you don't really see it frame by frame, but as we hit play and he's walking towards us, we definitely see that flickering right around the midsection. So let's go again and delete the cache. And you'll see that it deletes it, but it's not really deleted, it just detaches it. Okay. And let's take this compression resistance down a little bit. Let's take our mass down a little bit. Take 12. increase the drag and the damping a little bit, and also the tangential drag and the stretch damping. Okay. So let's give this a try and see what happens. And replace existing, and again, we'll see what happens. Alright, so I played with it a little bit more, and eventually the trick was drag I turned up to 2, and then damping I turned up to 10. Okay. Now, if you look at the play, you'll see it looks much nicer. Okay. So yeah, so that works. Cool. Now there is some stuff you have to watch out for as I get closer here. Right about here, this arm gets so close to the cloth that it actually collides with it. And you can see that it's kind of pulling this away. Alright? So it's not going to be a huge deal because I'm going to shoot it from this angle. Alright, it might be a big deal, so I'll have to tweak that also. Okay? Here it goes. Alright, but for the most part, this is good. Alright, so I played with it. I like the way the pants are looking, so the pants, I'm going to seal the deal and say it's good. So I'm going to save my scene as 003. And I can start working on the shirt. Now, for this pants, once I've created the settings for the pants that I like, I'm going to go up to presets and save this as a preset. So I'm going to say save preset. Sean's pants. And there it is. So now if I go to presets, you'll see here's one called Sean's pants, and I can just replace it if something happens and I change it for whatever reason. Okay? Awesome. I'm also just going to take down stickiness. I had that up, and that might have been why it was sticking. That's another thing I tried. Okay, so that's good. So now the pants are working. Splendid. So now I need to rewind. I need to turn the shirt back on. And I need to do the shirt. Okay, so now the pants are all cached. They work great. Don't need to worry about them. Okay, so I just leave them on. Now I'm going to take the shirt and the body, and I'm going to say, oops, sorry, just the shirt, and go to nMesh, create nCloth. Okay, so just like we did before, there's the nCloth, and then we hit this to about 60. And we start that whole process over again for figuring it out. Now it's not starting it from scratch because we've already changed some of our stuff. We've already changed what the nucleus is doing. Okay? And just right away I can see, ooh, it's too baggy of a shirt. Okay? But just for fun, let's let it go through and see what happens. Alright? So I'll let it play through. Once it's done, then we can take a look. Alright, so here's our first go at the shirt. And you can see it's really baggy, flopping all over the place. It obviously needs some settings adjusted, just like before. So let's go through and change some of the settings. Alright, so let's go through and let's take the damping up. We know that's something we're going to have to pull up. Take the drag up. Take the mass up some. And let's see how that goes. Alright, so let's right click. Go to Play Blast. Deselect. Play Blast, then check it again in a second. Alright, so here's our video. You'll see there's a little bit of sag here and some hanging of the shirt. But we can adjust that even more. Right now it kind of looks like it's a female and not a male. Okay, and we have that flickering problem too, and the shirt's probably hanging a little bit low. So I'm going to just go in here. I did up my stretch resistance before I did my Play Blast last time, so I'm just going to up this a little bit more. So maybe we'll make this 100. I could even take my rest length scale, because right now whatever length this is at, maybe it's a little bit too big. Okay, so I can make this like 0.9, and what it'll do is it'll basically scale it in 0.9. Okay, so just to see what that does, if I hit play, you'll see how the shirt kind of compresses on the character, okay, instead of getting saggy. So it's a good way to kind of fit things a little bit tighter if we need to. All right, let me rewind that and just play it again so you can see how the shirt just kind of jumps inward. All right, see, maybe a little bit more damp drag, a little more damping. Alright, let's play it again, Sam. Alright, so now this is done, so let's wait. There it goes. And it looks like we still have a little bit of flickering maybe in the collar area. Definitely fits, the shirt fits a lot nicer. There is some collision issues in here. If we look at this, you can see how this is just colliding not correctly. Okay, basically it just went, the arm just went right through it. Okay, so let's look at that and see if we can adjust it. That 0.9 on the scale, that might have been a little bit too much. Okay, so let's take that 0.95. And my compression resistance, I'll probably have to take that down more. Okay, because it is compressing a lot here. So I have to make sure that I allow for that compression to happen. Okay, so again, we just play blast. Or at this stage, I mean, the animation looked good. It was just a matter of those issues. I might take the dragging up a little bit more and then damping up a little bit more. Okay, so I could play blast it, or I could just simply play through and then go to it. All right, so either way works. Like I said, we have to play it anyway, so we might as well play blast it to see. All right, so I cached this out, and I just wanted to preview to see what the collision thicknesses were, and it looked like they're actually pretty good. So I can turn those off. I mean, I could probably lower it a little bit on the shirt, just a touch. Maybe it's, you know, just too thick, because right now it's at 0.5, which is kind of like a big number. So I cached this just so we can kind of scrub through it to see what it's doing. And it does go through. You can see right there, it kind of goes through. Right there, it's going through. And it's even going through on this arm right there. So I am going to take that collision thickness down, maybe 0.05, and 0.05 of that. That's good. I'm going to delete the cache again, and then just create a new cache. Okay, and then we'll see what happens from here. All right, so here is my last simulation, and I'm noticing some of the little things. It's actually fine. Let's see. Fine right here. There are some parts sticking through because of what we just did, but as he comes here, you can see that the cloth is like pushing out, and what's happening is on this actual model these two pieces of geometry are intersecting each other. Okay, so if I just hide that piece of cloth, you'll see they're actually going inside each other, so our cloth really can't do anything at that point. So we're just gonna have to hide it the best we can. Okay, so and if I hit play, you'll see that this actually looks pretty good. And it looks like a piece of cloth right there. His chest seems to be bouncing quite a bit, so we can adjust that. But it does look like the shirt's on him pretty good. So let's go in here and find our drag, find our damp, pull those up. I think I do want to stretch just a little bit more, so let's take this down to maybe 65. And delete the cache, make the new cache, and I did rename this one to shirt. Okay. So now we just wait and see what happens. Alright, so I think we got it on this one. Not seeing the chest bouncing. Looks good. Looks like we have a good cloth animation here. And you can see from this angle, we're not even seeing any of that penetration. Okay. Now there is a little bit, if you look on the shirt itself, it's right there. But we're going to take care of that next. Okay, so let's take this. Let's, we already created the cache, so I don't need to worry about that. Let's save this. And then we'll save it as 004. Okay, so now all of our cloths are done. So now it's just a matter of getting that final look of the cloth. And the way we do that is we just take these two pieces of geometry, and I'll do the shirt first, it's the most obvious. And I just go to my edit mesh, go into the face area and say extrude. And that way I can just give this a little bit of thickness, like 0.1, maybe 0.2. And it popped up there, so let me just hit undo. Sometimes the thickness doesn't work the way it should, so then I can just use this, just pulling that open until it's covered. I don't know why the thickness does that. Usually it's a good one to use, but in this case, no. Alright, so now we've covered all those gaps, and it looks like he actually has some thickness to this shirt instead of just that plain one. We'll do the same thing on the pants. Edit mesh, extrude, pull the pants out a little bit. There you go. So now it looks like the pants have some thickness to them as well. And there's another thing, if let's say, you know, his body parts were still like poking through, that we could do to kind of correct that. And what I've done in the past is, let me just isolate the geometry here, is I'll take the guy, I'll go into face mode, and anything that I don't see, like this area here, okay, so this is all stuff that I typically wouldn't see with his pants correctly on, and I can just assign a Lambert to it. Make sure I got on there, Lambert 3. Okay, it wants me to go into the hypershade. Now on Lambert 3, I can just take the transparency all the way off. So what it's going to look like now, I'll turn layer 3 off, is it looks like he's invisible, partly. Okay, but it's just to kind of, you know, not have any of that stuff happening. All right, and you really don't need it because it's not important to the rendering. All right. So now when we render this out, I'm going to start at frame 1. There it is. And I'm just going to render this all the way to 214, I think is when he actually ends. I think it's 210. Alright, so I render this all the way out to, let's just say 190. Okay, so it does this weird like stagger step at the end. Alright, so there's already lights inside the scene. Just grab these. Linear workflow is already set up on it. Let's change this range to 190. All the settings in here should be fine. The quality should be up. No final gather. You can change this if you want. I just had it set up just so it's kind of like an easier process to go through. There's no render layers with this. It's just let it go. Just like the song. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so that's it. So then we would render this out. We bring it into Nuke because it's linear, and we would just adjust the coloring in there if we needed, send it in After Effects, make a movie, and we are done. Okay, so that's the introduction to nCloth. There's a lot more we could do. We haven't really even touched all these other constraints, but they are equally cool things that we can do to them. A lot of different things that we can make from this. Yeah, I can show some stuff in class. Okay, so if you need more help, you can look at the help files, obviously. There's a lot of things inside here too, inside the help files themselves. Here's making a tree with nCloth. Here's making a bag of marbles. They have tutorials. They have, you know, lots of cool stuff inside of the nCloth thing here. This is a cool one, this confetti one. Okay, and they're not even like that difficult to do. It's like half a page, and you make confetti. So yeah, so that's it. Cool.